Hey guys, SuperHorrorBro Mike here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a stroll through the halls of Aperture Science as we investigate the dark side of the Portal games. Now, in case you aren't familiar with the world of Portal and its sequel, let me fill you in. Portal stars protagonist Chell, a silent female test subject who awakens within her test chamber to be greeted by a female AI known as GLaDOS.
Hello, and again, welcome to the Aperture Science Computer-Aided Enrichment Center. We hope your brief detention in the relaxation vault has been a pleasant one.
With GLaDOS' aid, Chell is guided to a portal gun, which, as the name suggests, creates portals upon the surfaces of walls so a person can travel between 2 points. Using this mechanic, Chell traverses a series of ever-challenging test environments before it is revealed her purpose is now complete, and GLaDOS decides to wipe her from existence.
Thank you for participating in this Aperture Science Computer-Aided Enrichment activity. Goodbye.
However, Chell manages to destroy GLaDOS and escape, but is recaptured after an explosion knocks her unconscious and awakens years later, only to be tormented by GLaDOS once more in the sequel until the two are forced into an unlikely friendship as they work together to take down a greater threat. There are many twists and turns along the way, of course, but this is the basic premise. Both Portal games are full of comic relief, but don't let that fool you. These games are dark, with creepy stories being told behind the scenes. In this video, we take a look at a few popular theories, some of the creepy Easter eggs, and the darker side of the game's lore, in a video that shows just how weird Portal can get. Let's begin with a look at the original Portal and some of its darkest secrets, kicking off with those decidedly unsettling secret rooms. These rooms are found behind wall panels, hidden from plain sight, but we are able to teleport inside them at certain points, such as the one you're seeing on screen now. They tell the sad story of a character who is never featured directly within the games, but instead showed up in the comic book spin-off Lab Rat. This man was scientist Doug Ratman, a paranoid schizophrenic who relied on his medication to keep him sane. He was also a highly talented scientist and worked on the portal device Chell now wields. However, during the company's annual Bring Your Daughter to Work Day, GLaDOS, the crazed AI, was brought online and flooded the building with a deadly neurotoxin, killing everyone who worked there. Well, everyone except Doug. From that day, he was trapped in the depths of Aperture Science, hiding behind the walls from GLaDOS and the security cameras and turrets outside she monitored. His only friend, a companion cube which he seems to travel with. However, without his medication, he went completely insane and could not separate reality from fiction. He scrawled ramblings all over the walls in these hiding places, and many of these are pretty disturbing. In fact, the further into the lab we get, the more off-kilter Doug's scrawl becomes. To begin with, he rants about the murder of his fellow scientists and documents how someone stole away his companion cube, editing photographs of his fellow Aperture staff and sticking cubes in place of their heads. But by the end, he is simply pleading for help and rambling about how the cake is a lie. We'll come back to Doug and his secret rooms as we continue with his story in a little while, but first, let's talk about this cake. The cake is a lie is a reference to how GLaDOS continuously promises test subjects cake throughout their navigation of her test chambers, only to of course be not met with cake at the end, but rather agonizing death. However, we do get to at least see a cake at the end of the game. The cake is a lie became a popular meme and running joke within the Portal community that is still referenced to this day. However, it is also kind of creepy just how much the game fixates on cake and even does so in a way which breaks the fourth wall and communicates directly to the player. For example, in the first Ratman hideout, we can move this broken security camera to discover a login and password for a mysterious website, also graffitied to the walls of this room. Visit this web address and you'll be greeted by a strange sight. Security footage of a companion cube wearing a Santa hat placed on a table beside, you guessed it, a cake. This is pretty weird, but the creepy part is that this website originally displayed something far more sinister. When Portal originally shipped back in 2008, this site was simply a black screen with a login command. Logging in via the details provided takes you to a database where certain commands provide the player with some instructions. For example, enter apply and you'll see this message, which leads you to yet more instructions if you then type continue. However, type the cake is a lie and this spooky message appears. When was the last time you left the building? Has anybody left the building lately? I don't know why we're in lockdown. I don't know who's in charge. I did find out a few things, like these terminals don't have to tap out characters one at a time, and while we're all working on 20-year-old equipment, somehow they can afford to build an enrichment center. Check out the security feed. Whatever the hell a relaxation vault is, it doesn't have any doors. I don't think going home is part of our job description anymore. If a supervisor walks by, press return. Notice too the security feed is from the camera watching Chel's containment room. Elsewhere there are yet more cake references. Make your way inside this observation room and check out the computer monitors here. The text scrolls pretty quickly, but when slowed down or freeze framed, you can see this jumble of text is actually various cake recipes. Finally, when we face off against GLaDOS at the very end of the game, check out the giant screen opposite her, and when slowed down, we see many of the images displayed here are in fact of Cake 2. Check it out.
You chose this.
Another Easter egg to be found on this screen is the Black Mesa logo itself. If you didn't know, Black Mesa was Aperture Science's rival company and the R&D institute found throughout the Half-Life games. In Portal 2, there is a secret entrance to what appears to be a giant underground dock. Here we find the docking station for the Borealis, an enormous ship which is referenced during the campaign of Half-Life Episode 2. Take a listen.
It's the Borealis!
Good God.
Incredible!
What? The Borealis? It's real?
Oh yes, quite real, despite its almost legendary stature. Our peers at Aperture Science were at work on a project of some promise, but in their rush to beat Black Mesa for funding, they must have compromised ordinary standards of risk. We heard their research vessel had simply disappeared, vanished, with all hands.
So there are several ties which link the sinister story of Black Mesa and Aperture Science together, and by token also link Half-Life to Portal. But with these initial secrets and storylines out the way, it's time to move on to Portal 2, which offers far darker and more disturbing Easter eggs and lore. Once again, let's pick up the story of ill-fated scientist Doug Ratman. Many people wonder how exactly Chel reawakened in one piece after being caught in the explosion during the conclusion of the original game. This happened because Doug came out from hiding upon witnessing an escort bot carrying Chel back inside the Aperture facility after she was knocked unconscious. Doug kept Chel alive by patching her up inside a relaxation chamber, but was injured when shot at by gun turrets in the process. Chel survives in a state of stasis until she is reawakened years later when the facility comes back online in Portal 2. However, we never find Doug and his fate is largely unknown, although there is some speculation. We see more and more a decline in his mental state, however, he may have escaped. A popular theory is that Ratman actually managed to escape to the moon. It sounds really crazy, but bring this radio found during Test Chamber 6 during Chapter 2 to Doug's secret room and you'll hear this audio. When decrypted, this audio pattern reveals an image, and that image is of the moon. And of course we actually visit the moon during the Portal 2 campaign. Coincidence? You be the judge, but this is definitely a spooky mystery hidden within the game. Moving away from the story for a moment, let's take a look at some random and creepy gun turret moments, discoverable as we take a journey through this sequel. During test chamber 16, it is possible to manipulate the laser beam to blow up a sentry turret behind this ventilation shaft and then crouch down to make your way inside. Doing so reveals a secret room, and if we look through the grating here, we see a creepy sight. Gun turrets ominously communicating through music to one another. The final turret Easter egg actually leads into another creepy secret altogether, initially used for comic relief in this scene.
Oh no.
Yes, hello, no, we're not stopping.
Don't make eye contact, whatever you do.
No, thanks, we're good. Appreciate it.
Keep moving, keep moving.
We can encounter this turret once again later on in the game, and if we choose to save it from the conveyor belt, it speaks to Chell, saying the following.
Prometheus was punished by the gods for giving the gift of knowledge to man. He was cast into the bowels of the earth and pecked by birds.
This dialogue sounds out of place at first, but it relates heavily to the story of the game and acts as a very literal metaphor. During Portal 2's story, GLaDOS has her AI core torn out by Nemesis Wheatley, which he then proceeds to cram inside of a potato. Yeah, it's pretty weird, I know. This potato is then snatched away by a bird, and when we discover its location, GLaDOS is being pecked at and seems to be in great distress. For the rest of the game, she is then terrified of this bird and freaks out whenever she spots it. But now we remember what the turret was speaking of, the Greek legend of Prometheus who is cast down and pecked by birds for his sins. Now we see the exact same thing happening to GLaDOS for her sins in the story of this game. However, this turret also refers to a woman named Caroline.
Her name is Carolyn.
So, who was Caroline? Well, over the course of Portal 2's adventure, we learn that Caroline was the naive assistant to Cave Johnson, the owner of Aperture Science, who had his team of scientists conduct some truly horrifying experiments on voluntary test subjects.
The average human male is about 60% water. As far as we're concerned, that's a little extravagant. So if you feel a bit dehydrated in this next test, that's normal. We're gonna hit you with some jet engines and see if we can't get you down to 20 or 30%.
Eventually, Caroline was betrayed by Johnson, and her mind and personality were placed inside sentient AI, GLaDOS. But before being transformed into a robot, it is hinted at that Caroline and Cave Johnson had more than just a professional relationship and were in fact lovers. We can access this secret room in Portal 2, which seems to be Cave's office, and upon discovering a portrait of Mr. Johnson and Caroline, GLaDOS has this to say.
Those people in the portrait, they look so familiar.
Which kind of confirms her identity. But the craziest theory of all is that Cave, Caroline, and Chell are in fact all related. Many fans believe Chell is the child of Cave and Caroline's love affair. But this dark and sinister story goes deeper still. The potato GLaDOS is stuffed inside came from a science experiment created by one of the kids during the Bring Your Daughter to Work day. And whose name do we find on the artwork beside this experiment? We see the name Chell. This suggests Chell is not only the daughter of Cave and Caroline, but also the person who brought in the potato her own mother would eventually be stuck inside, and the emotional trigger that sent GLaDOS, or Caroline, into a meltdown when first brought online, and then wiped out the entire facility with a neurotoxin. That is, aside from two people. Scientist Doug Ratman and the young girl he saved, Chell, who would awake as an adult years later in a test room. Here, her mother Caroline, now a demented AI known as GLaDOS, after being experimented on by her lover and Chell's father Cave Johnson, would test her until death. Talk about a dysfunctional family and a creepy hidden backstory to a game with many dark secrets.
Well done. Remember, the Aperture Science Bring Your Daughter to Work Day is the perfect time to have her tested.
And that's it for today's video. Please remember to give it a like if you did enjoy watching, and maybe drop a comment too, as well as subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications so you never miss an upload. This channel specializes in variety horror content, including creepypasta readings, horror gaming facts and theories, and general interest pop culture horror videos. So if you're interested in all things spooky, you'll find something to enjoy here at SuperHorrorBro. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video.